Just a few years ago, Nick Fuentes was banned from virtually every major platform of the internet, with both the left and the right united in rejecting him all over his extremist views on race and gender.
Like, they know that black people are violent, you know? I will say, hey, black people are violent, and then they'll go, I bet you wouldn't say that in front of a black person. Why? Because they're a thug that'll hit me? Like,
go out there on my show and I say, I don't think women should be in the workforce. Frankly, I don't know if they should be voting.
At the time, it genuinely seemed like he was headed down the same road as Richard Spencer and Milo Yiannopoulos, as he continued to shout into the void for a small, cult-like following, before fading into irrelevancy like every other deplatformed far-right personality that came before him. But fast forward to 2026, and the story looks completely different. Because not only has Nick Fuentes survived, he's somehow managed to become one of the most influential figures in online spaces that push traditional right-wing political ideas. And despite still being banned from pretty much everywhere, he still regularly appears on some of the largest podcasts, pulling in millions of views and exposing his ideas to audience far beyond his original base. And surprisingly, this recent rise in his popularity isn't because he cleaned up his image or distanced himself from his past. If anything, he's gotten more radical and more openly hateful than ever before.
Jews are running society, women need to shut the f*** up, blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part, and we would live in paradise. It's that simple. It's literally that simple.
While many people online understandably consider him to be a Nazi for these views, his audience continues to grow like any other mainstream political commentator, which is exactly what makes his popularity so concerning, and why Nick may be far more dangerous than most people realize. It's your boy Luesta, and this is how Nick Fuentes became so hated. But first, let's bring you up to speed on how this 26-year-old American man of Mexican and Italian descent became one of the most controversial figures on the internet in the first place. Nick Fuentes actually got his start in politics while he was still in high school, commenting on local political topics for his school's radio station. At the time, his views were pretty standard, with nothing too far outside of the mainstream echo chambers. But after graduating in 2016, things started to shift. He enrolled at Boston University to study international relations and politics, and around the same time period, he launched his daily live stream show, America First, where his ideas quickly grew far more extreme. It was here where we started to see Nick push narratives about the supposed failure of multiculturalism, the marginalization of white people in America, and the argument that the First Amendment simply wasn't written for Muslims or immigrants. Unsurprisingly, these views earned him a pretty negative reputation on campus, but things didn't fully spiral out of control until later that year, when he attended the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, a white supremacist event that was attended by hundreds of neo-Nazis and Klan members. The rally made national headlines after a self-identified white supremacist drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing a 32-year-old woman and injuring 35 others. But when Nick took to Facebook to post about the event, he completely ignored the tragedy and instead called the rally incredible. For obvious reasons, this triggered a massive wave of backlash both online and on his university campus that ultimately forced him to drop out.
When you start receiving death threats to the extent that I have, it just becomes a liability to my brand, to my academic success and everything else, when you do have to worry about people ganging up on you or whatever.
And even though he publicly claimed he didn't support Nazism or the attack itself, the damage was already done. And this moment marked the beginning of a downward spiral that would only get worse over time. But ironically, all that controversy also brought a flood of new attention to his live streams. And over the next few years, that exposure helped him build a loyal following that only made him more comfortable being open and completely unapologetic about his most extreme views. It didn't take long for Nick to move way past simply criticizing multiculturalism or immigration policy and into outright white nationalism, going as far as arguing that the term white supremacist is actually an anti-white slur, and that white people in America are somehow under an existential threat from non-white groups.
and so whites are in this predicament where if we don't team up, it's not just that we will be at a disadvantage, but we will be at the mercy of a large non-white coalition that is anti-white.
And as he tries to justify these radical views by framing them as defensive, he implies that he's simply trying to protect white identity.
So it is in the best interest for whites to survive and to thrive, that we develop a white racial consciousness so that we can protect our interests against a hostile majority with an axe to grind against us.
But the moment Nick starts to talk about non-white people, that argument completely falls apart, and the racism becomes impossible to ignore. And nowhere is that more obvious than his views towards black people.
You know, these blacks, hey, 13% of the population, half the crime, you know, they struggle with the impulse control, they're violent, and then they...
I don't want to live around black people. I just don't. It would be irresponsible if I had a wife and kids to live near black people. It just would be.
He also believes that the black communities are destroying American cities.
It is literally a rot that is killing every American city. Go to downtown Los Angeles. It's like Escape from LA. It's killing New York. It's killing Chicago. It's killing these cities.
On top of that, he's gone as far as defending Jim Crow era racial segregation on his show, claiming that segregation was actually better for everyone involved.
It was better for them too, number one, but number two, who cares? Who cares? You know, enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal. Oh no, they had to go to a different school. Their water fountain in that famous picture was worse. Who cares? Grow up, drink out of the fucking water fountain. It's water, it's the same. You know, and you know, even if it was bad, who cares? Who cares? It's better. It's better in general. We all agree it was better for them. It's better for us. Better in general.
The thing is, such political views can very easily go from being edgy opinions and transform into something genuinely dangerous. Because when you frame an entire group of people as an existential threat, it doesn't take much for words to turn into justification for real-world violence. And Nick doesn't exactly shy away from that implication either. He openly fantasizes about the so-called superior Aryan race to rise up and destroy its enemies.
You know what I want? Total Aryan victory. That's all I want. I didn't choose that. All I want is revenge against my enemies and a total Aryan victory.
Similarly, he believes that Islam is a barbarous ideology that wanted to come over and kill others, and that Muslims have a dark energy.
But Muslims have like a dark energy. Muslims have like they always look angry. I hate the way their language sounds. It's so harsh. They got their feet out. They're wearing sandals, and they take them off for their prayer. They worship a strange god. Their food is weird.
But this is just the tip of the iceberg of Nick's obnoxious point of views. He's a traditionalist Catholic who wants the United States to become a Christian nation, and when he talks about it, he's very explicit about what that actually means to him. For instance, during a broadcast of America First that went live in February of 2022, Nick said in his own words, "America, for what it's worth, was founded by white Christians. It was not founded by Jewish people. It was not founded by Judeo-Christians. It was founded by white Christians. And white Christians are in the majority. Christianity is the religion of this nation. If we're going to make America great again, we've got to talk about the anti-white thing that's going on. And if we want to restore America, we've got to make America a Christian nation again." At first glance, that might sound like just another extreme religious or nationalist opinion. But in reality, Nick genuinely believes that he and his followers are engaged in a kind of holy war, with a divine mission to destroy what he sees as the enemies of Christ.
We're in a holy war, and I will tell you this. Because we're willing to die in the holy war, we will make them die in the holy war. And they will go down. We have God on our side, and they will go down with their satanic master. They have no future in America. The enemies of Christ have no future in this world.
And as you can probably guess, in his worldview, that enemy is Jewish people.
We need to recognize Judaism hates Christ. It has antipathy towards Europeans, and we need to decouple from them as a civilization.
In fact, he's so open about his anti-Semitism that he's developed a sickening obsession with Hitler and repeatedly praises him like a hero.
Buddy, it's Führer Friday. It is Hitler Friday. Shut up. It is Heil Hitler Friday, nigga. Heil Hitler. All my niggas Nazis, nigga. Heil.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore, am I right?
Am I right? Am I right, boys?
Was an incredibly ambitious, aggressive risk taker. Given your qualifications, would you thereby say that Hitler is a good leader?
It's indisputable he is. Indisputably. You could even say he's evil. He made Germany great again.
If this isn't already problematic enough, he also denies the Holocaust and compares the victims of that tragedy with baked cookies.
It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there. The math doesn't quite seem to add up there. I don't think you'd result in 6 million, maybe 200 to 300,000 cookies. And I think the Red Cookie Association said something like that, probably 200 to 300,000 cookies baked, probably. And in addition, you know, in this hypothetical, I imagine that if you took aerial photographs over the kitchens, you would need to see certain smokestacks to release the smoke from baking the cookies. And the smokestacks would project certain shadows, but I guess they're not visible in the aerial photographs taken over the kitchens. Moreover, if you look at the soil texture, it's really not deep enough for mass cookie storage underground. And so there's a lot of things, you know, in the cookie kitchen, they say that the ovens are wooden and they have windows on them and they're not totally secure. And the ovens that they use, they actually did sort of an ad hoc use of that particular kind of oven, even though they made a perfectly good design for ovens for a different purpose, for delousing. I mean, you know, for something else. So none of it really adds up. I don't know. It just kind of doesn't really make sense.
And when it comes to gender in women, he somehow manages to sink even lower. For starters, he believes that women shouldn't be able to vote, and claims that if he ever became president, he would take away that right from them.
I would just take away the right to vote for tons of people. Women, for sure.
He considers women inherently less intelligent and have lower IQs than men.
And so women exist basically, in my opinion, on a lower plane. I think that like the cognitive difference between men and women is not like they're dumber. I think that they're fundamentally like on a lower cognitive plane. You know, you would never say that a dog is like dumber than a person. You would say that like a dog just like could never conceive of language. Like dog doesn't have the same category of mind as a human being. The same thing with women. Women don't have the same category of mind as a man.
During an appearance on the similarly chaotic Fresh and Fit podcast, he went as far as to say that women are basically baby machines, because that's what their brains are about. And his opinion about sexual assault is also downright criminal. As for him, rape isn't even a big deal.
The idea of rape is that the rapist is getting the sexual pleasure from it. You can, well, it's about power. Well, at the end of the day, it's a sexual act for sexual pleasure. So it literally doesn't even make any sense why you would rape somebody in a way that doesn't even it's not even about your dick, right? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? If you're just finger fisting somebody, like, I don't know if you were just trying to be mean or just downright malicious, maybe, like, you know, you. It's not like it's doing anything for you.
Because according to him, women actually want to be raped.
It's sort of like how a lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
If all of this still doesn't show you the evil and despicable human this guy is, back in November 2024, when Trump won the presidential election, Nick celebrated this by telling women that Republican men now owned their bodies.
The feel when you're totally not pressed. The feel when we control your bodies. Hey, bitch, we control your bodies. Guess what? Guys win again. Okay, men win again. And yes, we control your bodies. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. It's your body, my choice. And men, women again. Men win again. We will keep you down forever. You will never control your own bodies. You will never be the president of the global empire. Never gonna happen, sweetie. Your body, our choice.
Shockingly, that still isn't his lowest low when it comes to this topic. as he believes that the appropriate age for a girl to get married is 16.
Women don't age like wine, they age like milk. They don't age like wine. That's not how their hormones work. That's not how they work. Yeah, I gotta find my 16-year-old wife. Probably when I turn 30 or something. Because here's the thing, I don't want to be like, let's say I get married to a 18-year-old now. 6-year age difference. When I turn 40, she's going to be 34. Ew. What if I'm 30 and she's 16? 14-year age difference. When I'm 50, she'll be 36. When I'm 40, she'll be 26. Then now we're talking here. Now we're cooking with gas.
And to top off his blatant misogyny, he complains about the fact that abuse against women isn't common anymore, and that he wants to go back to when women were burned alive.
And we can't do anything about it. You can't hit these people. You can't punch them. They don't arrest them. And basically they're taking over the culture on social media. I said, what happened to the good old days 1,000 years ago when people like this, instead of arguing with them or saying, hey, listen, darling, everything's okay, they would dunk them in the river or burn them alive. I said, this is the kind of thing that we need to see more of, is burning them alive a little bit more.
So it's really no surprise that by the start of this decade, the overwhelming majority of the internet had turned against him. This dude is disgusting. Imagine believing that loser about, well, anything. And at the time, even mainstream conservative figures wanted nothing to do with him. That became clear in September 2019, when Ashley St. Clair, a brand ambassador for Turning Point USA, was hanging out with Nick among other white nationalists. As soon as the images of this meetup went viral, Charlie Kirk publicly cut ties with Ashley, and Turning Point USA put out a statement calling out white nationalism as an abhorrent and un-American ideology. This entire drama made it pretty obvious that Nick's version of conservative politics were seen as far too extreme for the broader right-wing movement. And for most people, this kind of rejection might have been a wake-up call, but for Nick, it had the opposite effect. Instead of reconsidering his position, he doubled down on his disgraceful behavior and began attacking Charlie Kirk and any other conservative figure who criticized him. He claimed that he didn't want him or his followers to exist.
You've got all these non-white people in the country who hate us. They're not against our policies, they're against us. They're against our existence. They say in the same breath that they want to kill all Nazis, and then at the same time say that all white people are Nazis.
So he decided to launch a counter-offensive campaign against mainstream conservatism in the US, which he named the Groyper War. He encouraged his alt-right audience to aggressively target TP USA. So over the next 2 months, Groypers heckled and disrupted dozens of Charlie Kirk's speaking events, including those that featured high-profile guests like Donald Trump Jr. Then, in December of 2019, Nick went on to confront Ben Shapiro publicly outside of a TP USA event, while Ben was walking with his family.
I know you're with your family, but I can't get to anywhere else. A 45-minute speech.
After these incidents, the way the online world felt about Nick at the time can basically be summed up by this one tweet. Nick Fuentes is a sniveling little incel with a thin grasp of politics, whose head is getting too big for his body, because he thinks having a following of a few irrelevant clout-chasing e-celebs is equal to having actual influence. But even though the Groyper War was marked by a very public break from mainstream conservative politics, throughout all this, Nick remained a loyal supporter of Donald Trump. To give you an idea, when Trump lost the 2020 presidential election, Nick quickly became one of the loudest voices pushing the Stop the Steal narrative. On January 4th, 2021, during a live stream that has now been deleted, he went as far as to promote violence against state legislatures who refused to overturn the election results. Republicans just screwed us every day for 2 months straight, and we have no recourse. Why? Because we have no leverage. What are we going to do to them? What can you and I do to a state legislature besides kill them? And 2 days later, when a mob of Trump supporters stormed the US Capitol on January 6th, Nick was actively encouraging and leading the charge.
We have just learned that they have stopped the vote of the Electoral College in Congress!
But this unwavering loyalty didn't last long. And soon after, Nick entered what might be his most pathetic era so far. By late 2022, Nick suddenly started shifting away from Trump and started supporting Kanye West's presidential campaign. And we all know the kind of ideology Ye had started promoting by then. Around the same time, even Nick went completely off the rails and became much more explicit about his unhinged vision for the country.
Like a society where women don't have the right to vote. And it looks like a society where boys and girls get married as teenagers and start having kids, and they don't use birth control, and they don't use contraceptives, and they have big families and a high birth rate. And it looks like women wearing veils at church, and it looks like women not being in the workforce, and it looks like mothers raising their kids, and it looks like pornography being banned, and homosexuality and transsexuality, as well as heterosexual sodomy, as well as fornication and adultery being shamed by the society, and maybe in some places, in some jurisdictions, regulated by the law.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the American Taliban. There's no way this guy is real. This right here is why I'm fearful for my life. People like this exist. It's gut-wrenching. But strangely enough, this is also when everything started to go right for him. In the span of just 3 short years since then, Nick Fuentes went from an extremist provocateur with a relatively small cult-like audience to one of the most dominant voices in the online political space. As of February 2026, he has over 1.2 million followers on X and more than 650,000 followers on Rumble, where he consistently pulls hundreds of thousands of views every single day. And if you've seen our recent video on Ben Shapiro, you already know just how dramatic this shift has been. Nick's influence in the broader right-wing internet spaces has grown to the point that he's beginning to overshadow some of the most popular figures of the far-right conservative movement in the last decade. But the most shocking part of his rise is the fact that it isn't coming only from the right. Some segments of the left-leaning online communities have also started agreeing with several of Nick's talking points. Interestingly, a big reason for this unexpected crossover comes down to how aggressively Nick has turned on the Trump administration over the past few months.
This movement is over. And now the question is, what comes next? Trumpism is over. I hate to inform you, this administration is done. Stick a fork in it, it's fucking over. We played this game. It's deja vu. I was there for the first term, and I remember right up until 2020, I was saying, okay, we could still make a difference. I remember in like spring 2020, I was coping. Trust me when I tell you, it's over. We're out of time.
He's repeatedly criticized the Republican government for failing to deliver on its promises and accused it of selling voters a populist fantasy.
$2 trillion from the deficit. We're going to deport millions of people. We're going to eliminate the Department of Education. We're going to build the wall. We're going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
Right.
Remember? Everybody thought it was going to be Trump and Vivek and Elon and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. dancing to Staying Alive. Well, they shrank the government and, introduced the golden age and everything would be great. Remember this? I knew it then. And so I told people, look, you're not going to get mass deportations. You're not going to get America First immigration policy. You're going to get a war with Iran. They're not going to be able to end this war in Ukraine. Like, none of the things they're promising are actually going to come true.
Plus, when Trump refused to release the Epstein files back in July 2025, insisting that there was no client list and told people to move on, Nick immediately went after him, claiming that the liberals were right all along, and he openly called Trump a scam artist who betrayed his own voters. Now, many of these criticisms were common arguments coming from the left. So naturally, Nick ended up pulling support from 2 very different groups at the same time, which is disillusioned Republican voters who felt dissatisfied with Trump's administration and Democrats who had opposed him from the start. I had wondered how Nick has gotten so big and garnered so much support. This video is exactly why. Crystal clear and concise criticism of this administration and the frustration we feel. He's been killing it lately, and I've disagreed with a lot of what he's previously said, but credit where credit is due. Similarly, since the outbreak of the recent recent Israel-Palestine conflict in October 2023, Nick has been continuously critical of America's support for Israel. The thing is, he has been one of the biggest supporters of Trump's America First vision, which basically promotes the idea that the US should stop pouring money, weapons, and political resources into foreign conflicts and instead prioritize its own people. But Nick believes that Trump's financial and military aid to Israel directly contradicts that vision.
I also oppose the Republican Party corruption of the Jews in Israel that want us to fight their wars. You have to be both. That is America first. Right-wing Jews in Israel that live in Israel or live in America and Europe supporting Israel, they support the Republican Party and the right-wing parties in Europe because those parties are going to prevent Muslims and leftists from compromising their foreign aid, and they're going to bring us to war in the Middle East against Iran because the right wing is the party of jingoism and the military-industrial complex and the rest of it.
Apart from that, he also has spoken against how criticism of Jews is being actively suppressed by political institutions, media outlets, and tech platforms.
It's gross. This is America. And really, it's a patriotic issue. This is America. This is America, not Israel. You should be allowed to criticize Jews here. It's just so unpatriotic. We're living under tyranny. Don't you realize that? Everywhere you go, you dare not criticize this group out of fear of retribution and their gangster tactics. They're gangsters.
Also, when he recently appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored, he argued that Israel operates on supremacist politics that are very similar to Nick's own ideology. That's why he believes it's hypocritical when people condemn him as an extremist, but at the same time give a free pass to a state that is allegedly motivated by the same sort of ideas.
They have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state, they can be proudly Jewish in their own land, whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants.
And once again, his statements perfectly reflect the left's criticism of Zionism and the IDF. Fuentes is a Nazi twerp, but he's correct in seeing himself reflected in Israel. Zionism comes from the same ideological base as Nazism, ethno-supremacy, and a desire to genocidally cleanse the world of lesser people. The IDF and the SS operate on the same logic. But despite all of this, it's important to point out that a lot of people of the left still flat out refuse to support Nick. Fuentes isn't necessary because he's not the only person capable of criticizing Israel's influence on Congress. Quite frankly, he's detrimental to the cause because he's some kid that streams ethno-state and Kanye West apologia on niche platforms. The left should not get in bed with racists and neo-Nazis. It's easy to be against the action of the Israeli government without dipping into anti-Semitism. We should focus on educating people on the difference between criticizing Israel and anti-Semitism. And teaming up with anti-Semites is not the way to do that. And this is exactly why Nick's rising popularity should deeply worry every US citizen, regardless of their political side. You see, backing any part of Nick's politics risks normalizing the rest of it. Once people start praising him for being right about one thing, it becomes much easier to overlook or excuse the open racism and misogyny. And for young, impressionable audiences who don't yet have strong political foundations, that kind of normalization can do serious damage. Even when it comes to Israel, his criticism isn't based on the atrocities committed against tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians. The only reason he's against America's association with Israel is his anti-Semitism. And it's obvious how little he cares about his America First slogan when you look at the support for the US strike in Venezuela on January 3rd, 2026.
I actually probably favor regime change in Venezuela. To be honest, I think that that is a perfectly legitimate strategic goal of the United States.
In exactly the same way, he has been speaking against Trump and his administration only because they aren't extremist and radical enough for him. He wants the Republican Party with zero immigrants, and he refuses to support J.D. Vance only because Vance is married to an Indian woman and has biracial children.
The Vance is like being foisted upon us. You must recognize this. The most foisted foist that has ever been foisted. It is the biggest imposition in the history of politics. He's fucking not real, guys. He's not real. He's fat. He's got a non-white wife. He's got non-white kids. He isn't a Christian. His family's not Christian. He's not fucking based at all. He's not really racist. He's not really anti-Semitic. He's a white knight simp for his wife.
The point is, Nick doesn't really care about the truth, or even have a logical political ideology. His entire career has been built on shock value, and saying the most outrageous thing possible to provoke attention and controversy, and he's doing exactly that even now. For years, he's been promoting the conspiracy theory that the government is secretly controlled by a small group of wealthy Jewish elites. By now, after the release of the Epstein files, when public attention is finally turning towards powerful abusers, Nick has suddenly become a fan of the pedophile billionaire sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein was probably so cool. Like, he was probably the coolest guy you know. You're telling me the coolest guy you know who knows everybody says, hey, we're gonna go on my private jet to my private island. We got hot girls. He doesn't tell you how old they are. How fucking lame would you be? Are they 18? Like, who's gonna be the nerd that asks that? You probably would just assume they are.
The same logic explains why he's now picking fights with other far-right figures like Candace Owens and Patrick Bet-David.
Even look at her face. Look at her stupid face. You can literally see it in her eyes that she is a stupid bitch. It's written all over her face. It's like these eyes that are very knowing, but also hollow. Eyes are the window to the soul. And you could see in her eyes the way that she's making this expression, that she's very confident, but also complete idiot. Honestly, Patrick Bet-David, you should know better. You're a grown man. You claim to be a patriot. You're a 47-year-old man. And you have this whole shtick, I'm an alpha male, I'm a businessman, I'm no nonsense, I'm not woke. You're buying into this crap?
Again, it's not because he disagrees with them in good faith, but because tearing down alliances causes disruption inside conservative spaces. And at the end of the day, that's Nick Fuentes' entire shtick. He survives by manufacturing outrage, feeding on division, and keeping himself relevant by spewing hate and chaos. My name is Luesta, I'm live from Lu Extras, and I'm gonna see you on the next one. Peace.